It was very heartwarming because I'm like, man, I've been in my garage for like 4 years making stuff, and like this is like one of the best restaurants in the country that is like just treating me so nicely and stuff. And
David Kim, welcome to the show.
hello, thank you for having me.
Awesome. How's the day going so far?
Pretty good.
It's good?
Yeah.
Combing through a few of your past interviews, I found a few quotes that might spark some discussion or conversation, and they're all your quotes. Okay, so there's 3 of them. They're pretty short, but if any of them call you to add to it, just feel free to chime in. So the first one says, "Handmade objects, they come alive from being used."
Mm-hmm.
Second one is, "I always enjoyed that kind of labor. It's very repetitive, but you can refine the movements." And then the third one is, "Pottery is the art of failure."
Yeah.
So do any of them kind of, would you like to elaborate on any of them?
I guess pottery is the art of failure.
Yeah.
Basically pottery is practice, patience, and pain, you know.
Ooh.
It's the 4 P's, I think.
Okay.
But, yeah, it's you have a lump of clay and you're basically making it into a form using your hands,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have a vision in your mind and you try to translate that into a 3-dimensional object with your hands, you know? And you're basically thinning out this ball of clay to something that doesn't exist yet, you know?
Right,
and so
right.
it's there's a lot of trial and error that goes into it, and you can spend like, what do they say like you have to make 100 cylinders to actually understand how to make a cylinder, you know, in pottery.
So do you think that, because there's that like 10,000 hour rule, does that kind of apply then?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll get into that eventually, of like just how do you overcome this feeling of like giving up, right? We'll go into that eventually. Yeah. But for the listeners, I want to give context. Like David, I came across him initially through, it was most recently through the Kasama film, but I heard you on Tom and Andy's podcast. But then after reading a few, you were on like Chicago Mag or Eater, and you've been creating dinnerware for various restaurants, various high-end restaurants too.
Yeah.
And also, you know, learning that like you've kind of grown up in the restaurant industry as well, and your parents, are they still running a restaurant at this moment? Right? Was it sushi? Yeah,
my parents run the sushi restaurant in Niles H Mart.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
My buddy owns a car wash in that parking lot.
Oh, yeah.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Wow, small world. So now, chronologically, can you take us back to the first moment you felt inclined to manipulate materials with your hand and kind of bring your vision to something tangible? Whatever the material that was.
Yep. So my mother always told me, like, ever since she could remember, I was always like hands-on type of person. I wasn't really good at talking, I guess, or I didn't have any special skills, but I was always doing something.
Okay.
And she told me that, she told me that I would make things out of cardboard a lot.
Okay.
And so
they would just have a lot of cardboard laying around?
Yeah, I mean, when they had the restaurant, you know, they have like the paper towel rolls or like the boxes where things come in.
And what are some things you made with cardboard?
You know, like robots or like swords.
Okay.
And you know, like when you play, like I'd play with them afterwards, and you know.
So they're functional.
Yeah, functional, and they would, you know, they'd break, so then I'd be able to make more and stuff because they just fold over and stuff. But you know, like. I guess like lightsabers are easy because you just use the tube.
Heck yeah.
And then you just draw on it and you just imagine the color of the blade.
Yeah.
And then my brother was he liked to draw, and he was into like sci-fi stuff. So he would draw a lot of like sci-fi, like spaceships or like World War II airplanes. And
Sure.
I'd watch him do that and I get really excited. and he was into model building, and then I would try it, but it'd just become like a ball of glue, you know.
Okay.
So, but
Okay.
you know, it's fun though, you know, like working with my hands, and so I was always into that.
And then as you progressed through high school, did you stick with it, or kind of just took a break from it, or?
Well, I didn't. Throughout high school, I didn't really.
And GBS, right?
Yeah, GBS,
Okay,
Glenbrook
cool.
South.
I grew up in Skokie.
Oh, nice,
Skokie,
yeah.
Warren Grove, and then I moved to Palatine for a little
Oh,
bit. Yeah.
sweet. We're now neighbors.
Yeah.
So, but like, I guess in high school, I was in like a kind of a floating zone where I like
Yeah.
didn't know what to do, you know, like,
Yeah.
and
Did
but then
did they have like various art classes in high school?
Yeah, you know they did, and you know like, I think earlier in high school I wasn't sure, and I didn't even know that that was an option, and until like maybe junior senior year, I was
Right.
like, oh, snap, I could take art
Right,
in
right.
school, and then I started doing that, and I got really into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Into what specifically in art?
Ceramics.
Ceramics.
Yeah,
Oh, so okay, cool.
They actually had a ceramics program in my high school, which was super lucky because
Yeah.
it's very rare.
Yeah.
But even in my junior high school, I remember there was they had like a pottery wheel.
Okay.
And my
Oh,
first
wow.
pot was like 6th grade, and and I made a small 2 pots and then a T-Rex like sculpture when I was in junior high. And
I remember trying to make like a T-Rex, but like hollow to where you can use it as like an incense, and like it would like, or a dragon. It's like,
yeah,
the incense would come out of it.
with the smoke.
Do you still have with the smoke?
I still have the dinosaur in one of the pots, and maybe 2, but I know one of the pots is there at my parents'
That's
house.
cool.
And I know that I also made a car, but that car exploded in the kiln, so it was like failure right there, you know, junior high school.
So as you're nearing the end of high school, what are some conversations you're having with advisors or your parents to take the next step?
Well, I wasn't really good at school always, so
Yeah.
but my parents, you know, like my dad was a chef, so he never really pushed me to go in a specific route. He always encouraged me to do what I like, because you know he's a chef, and that's a very passionate and enduring career.
Yeah.
You have to have a lot of grit and stuff. So he's like, whatever you do, you just have to work really hard, you know. And I mean, it's a lot easier said than done, but. And then just work really hard. And my mom was the one that noticed that in class, you know, I wasn't really good. So, but then in my books, like I would just draw and doodle in every class around.
Did they see that, or it was just for you?
My mom, I think my mom saw it. Like I never showed her, but she saw one of my books, and then she noticed, like, and she realized that I was really into art my entire life, you know, up to that point. So she was encouraging, you know. So
amongst your friends, do you think that relationship was rare that you had with your parents?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I mean, but you know, they worked long hours, so I'd only have a certain amount of time throughout the day to actually see them, or it was very brief talking, you know. But
and I'm sure. Because most immigrant parents have a different version from the path that they took, because they want a less stressful life for their kids.
Yeah.
And ironically, their kids still take a very stressful path, even if it's different, but it's their own path.
Yeah.
And so for your parents to encourage you to take your own path, whatever it is, it's a breath of fresh air for me. I don't know too many people that have that type of relationship with their parents. So you're very lucky.
Yeah. I think part of my, like a great deal of my success is actually like the support my parents gave me, you know?
Yeah.
And even when I first started my studio, I was in my parents' garage for 4 or 5 years.
Like, was their garage space always taken up by other things, or was there a car in there before?
There was a car. Now it gets parked outside.
So it moved stuff for you.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
well, that's what I was on.
Yeah. I mean, and there was stuff I had to do a lot of reorganizing, and you know, like it took a lot of work in the garage space, and it's a two car garage.
Okay.
So it's about less than 300 square feet, I bet.
Yeah.
But you know, like after college, you know, that's just like a dream to actually have a space, you know.
We all start somewhere.
Yeah.
And to have this, like, the fortunate space of your own home, essentially. So then, how did you navigate? Like, did you consider not going to college? Or I know you went to SAIC,
Yep.
School of Art Institute in Chicago.
Yep. So, you know, I always really focused on what I was doing then.
Yeah.
So I never really thought like I was like never really was like, oh man, how am I gonna make money until like senior year? And then I was fortunate enough to, you know, like when I was in college I would work at tile making and then be artist assistants, and I could see the potential of what the material or this I guess art can take me. And then ceramics was just like I mean, I guess I was thinking like, how do I go in it, but I was so focused in the material that it led me to be able to figure out.
Is this during college or pre-college?
About towards the end of college.
End of college. Yeah. So how did but did you have any conversations after high school of like, what do I do now?
Oh yeah. So I went to art school with the intention of becoming a graphic designer.
Oh.
So more like in the tech side or computer side, and it's called visual communication. So learning how to translate.
Do you know Francis Almeida?
You know,
of him?
Yeah, I think
from Side Practice.
I have never met him formally, but I think we follow each other on Instagram.
Okay. So him and someone on his team, if they're listening, Noel. Noel is like his go-to, Francis' go-to like tea guy. Like he's a master of tea, and he puts on tea ceremonies. But when I thought of this, like your vessels would be like perfect for that. So you could, you guys should be in touch. So then graphic design. And then did you try it? And you're like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, I knew like freshman year, first semester, that I was like, I was not in, you know, like a lot of times I'll give some stuff a shot, you know, like I'll do it like just to get the experience of trying it. And then I'll really think about it. And like, I knew I was like, I'm not really into it, you know, but I still took classes after freshman year, just, you know, like,
keep going.
Yeah. Just in case, you know, like,
what can you share? What about graphic design you didn't like?
I guess for me, for me to understand things, I like to have a hands-on approach, like take things apart and figure out how the mechanism of objects work, or
and not just at the end, but during the whole process. Because what if you translated graphic design into a 3D model?
Yeah, that it's like I guess you still have the computer aspect, but the digital side to learn and to project that, and even when that happens, it's like it's not as exacting as how I want it to be. And I guess there was a learning curve with the technical side of it that I wasn't into. And I like more like physical working like
it's tactile feedback.
Yeah.
Even and some would argue like even in the digital world you still get immediate feedback, but there's something a little more satisfying with your hands, I think.
Exactly. And
yeah, keep going.
And I guess when things are too exact, like, you know, with like 3D programming and stuff, it makes it too 1 plus 1, or like you get this, you get that, you know. And when I make like small models and stuff, I'll have this idea, but it doesn't really come out exactly as the model, and I can refine the form, and that form can branch out quicker, you know. And I guess I'm not familiar with the like computer aspect too, which I would always was more comfortable with working.
Well, can you elaborate on your? Do you have a sense of perfectionism?
I think I do, but it's not like perfectionism. Like, oh, like this angle has to be perfect, or this type of round, you know. It's more of like I have a way of I like my making process to go.
Yeah. But how do you know when something feels right enough?
You know, you don't know until after you fire it, right? So like a piece, and it's. When do I know it's right enough?
Because once it's fired, you get it.
Yeah, it's done.
It's done.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think with that, it's more like I learn over time. You know, like there's this idea where you learn to see, training your eyes to see.
Yeah.
And it's like
Before you fire, or?
just like in general, in the making process of things,
Okay.
you know, like, oh, like when I made it like this curve was like here, and then eventually at the end it sagged in this way, or it sagged, like the proportions shrank. And,
Sure.
So that's what it's, the beauty of it is, I guess it's like, because it's handmade, you can't really, it's not something you can really control
Yeah.
of that. And I guess with pottery or this practice is, that's what makes it unique, you know, each piece.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't get that time that you put into that piece back. I remember when I first started this podcast, Jean Gabriel, like he's in that photo behind you, but like he's a knife maker. Similar concept of like your time and energy went into this piece that someone is going to use. And we'll talk about that eventually, of how, you know, people get to share a meal over your vessels. But can you go back to the second half of art school then? Like, where did you pivot to ceramics then?
Yeah, I mostly built a lot of sculptures.
Okay.
And more like, I was trying to push the, I guess, the material by, let's say, like the kilns at my school were about, they're like 30 cubic foot kilns, or like they had one, when I was graduating, they had a kiln that was about 5 feet tall in the inside. So I would try to make sculptures as 5 feet tall, you know, but like
very cool.
they shrink, you know.
Okay.
And just trying to build very kind of minimal, but like very sculptural objects. They're not functional.
So more abstract.
Yeah.
Okay. More art pieces.
Yep.
Okay.
More
okay.
art pieces. Yep.
And what did you learn through that process? About yourself, or?
Good things. Sculptures, like the way I built them was by coiling. So you basically get a coil, which is like a cylindrical piece of clay, right? Like extruded, and then you basically put it circular on the piece, right? And then you just build up coils, and then you smooth out the rounded edges to get like a flat or cylinder form, you know. And so I guess I just learned how the material, like just the engineering of hand building, I guess, like.
And through this process though, like, did you learn that this is like ceramics is something that you want to deepen and further your pursuit?
Yeah, I was already in college, I guess, probably senior year. I was like, well, I'm gonna try to do this for at least like,
You're like
5.
Like, this is it.
Yeah,
this is it.
Yeah, I was in the material. Like, I knew I wanted to be an artist, and I knew I loved the material and like the how do I say it? It's a very versatile material, you know.
Okay.
And
specifically clay.
Yep, clay.
Okay.
And clay, and basic ceramics is fired clay.
Okay.
So like tiles, functional ware, sculptures. It's in almost like everything, you know, like that's part of your daily life. And it was, I guess I was fascinated by that aspect of the material. And, you know, it's just like, I mean, I was just in it, you know. I was like, I didn't really, I tunnel visioned into the material.
Tunnel vision. Yeah. And so did school open your eyes to any like business mentality? Like how do you navigate, because you don't want to be the starving artist.
Yeah.
Right? Like how do you navigate creating a livelihood from your art?
Yeah, that's why.
Because it wasn't until you met the chef from Schwab.
Yep.
Right?
Well, so when I was in college and after college, I worked at a tile maker.
Okay.
And then there's like a handmade production tile maker. And then I also worked for an artist that made ceramic sculptures. And then I also worked at a handmade production pottery.
Whoa. So
I decided to, like, you know, like get information from all these different areas throughout the years.
And they were making a living.
Yep,
right?
They were making a living. And it's just, and, you know, I knew that I didn't want to do exactly tile making or that type of art.
And in your own words, can you share maybe what tile making is and how it differs from ceramics?
So tile making was tiles are, you know, they're like fired, they're clay, made out of clay, and they're fired. Ceramics is basically fired clay. So clay is like the the malleable material that you
Right.
work with, and you fire it,
Yeah.
and it basically turns into a hardened glass,
Mm.
and it is sanitary. Like toilets are made out of it, bathtubs are made out of it, wall tiles, bathroom tiles,
Okay.
and so. The person I worked with, he made like architectural. His name is Brian Kerrigan, and he worked with. He made architectural design tiles, and basically we would pug out clay, which is make a solid log of clay, and he had a thing called a ram press, and you put that clay log into the press, and it uses like a crazy I don't want to exaggerate. It was like 5 tons or 25
Pressure?
Yeah, like tons of pressure and air, and it just squeezes it. And the press has his design in it that he handmade. He makes a master mold model and then takes a mold of it and then puts it in the press.
Oh, wow.
And then, he makes awesome stuff. And he was a great influence on me too. Like how to set up it's a big studio, and he's like a one-man guy, and he would have 1 or 2 workers throughout to help him.
And what were some takeaways from the other jobs that you worked at?
So I worked for an artist named Deborah Handler. She's a good friend of mine too. And she basically was a grad student when I was undergrad. And so I helped her make her sculptures and mix her glazes. And she would talk a lot about like the conceptual side of making art and seeing objects or looking at art in general. And then the production pottery is Circa Ceramics. They're in Chicago too. And they're just a husband and wife duo, Andy and Nancy. And they make production pottery, basically, like using different methods of casting and jiggering, which is basically making mass production molds and making their forms.
What makes a good assistant in the ceramics world?
Good assistant, I guess you just keep focus and work, like a lot of it is just labor, right? Moving clay, mixing clay, and then, each one of that is going to factor into an actual piece that someone's going to buy, right? So it's just like consistent work and good attention to detail.
Yeah.
And like you seeing stuff when you're mixing your glazes or clay, or noticing things in the recipe that might be off, and you can like really mess up the outcome of big batches of wares,
So, and it sounds like you met Nancy while you were in school. Was school necessary for you to be where you're at right now? Would you actually be here without school?
So, most of the people I worked with, my friend Mie, she was my professor, and she introduced me to these people. So it was just like work. Like I always worked, so I knew how to work. And then I guess she noticed that I was. They were looking for workers, and so she would recommend me, and I just make all the just. It's good at working, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, but there are various introductory pottery classes and ceramics classes. But in order to be successful, do you believe? I mean, there's indirect positives to going to school.
Yeah.
Not necessarily maybe the curriculum, but maybe like the social aspects that come out of it, or the networking aspects that come out of it.
And the school definitely had a lot more equipment and kilns and knowledge from the professors that is like invaluable. That smaller pottery suit, they don't have that kind of equipment, or because those are like hundreds of $1,000 like kilns, or and like different types of kilns, and the material that they have is very hard to get that the school had, and so it had a lot of opportunity to experiment, know. And that was the beauty of coming from university. And you also learned from like a lot of the technical aspects of the material, like how to formulate glazes and clays. And then
it's pretty high level.
And also, I guess, mentoring, like when you talk to your professors, they're like, I had teachers that was like mid 30s to 70s or 60s, you know, and so they're all throughout different points of their careers.
Yeah, they want to give back, right?
Yeah, so that was amazing to me, you know, like, all right, well, I'm 18, 19, and then they're like 60, and I just take like anything they say, I just try to absorb it as like a sponge, you know. So.
Yeah.
And then one of my professors, Xavier, he told me to never throw anything away, which is really hard in ceramics, but and you know, like certain stuff I didn't throw away, and then I'd come back to the sculptures that I make or pieces or glaze tests that I made like 10 years ago, and then I'd look at it and then get new ideas from him, you know.
Is that what it meant when he said that?
He always just, I think so, you know, like, because there's a lot of pieces you make, and then sometimes it's like as I age and you know, when I was saying learning to see and stuff, it's like you come back and look at this piece you made 10 years ago with a new set of eyes, you know, like you make them with this intention back then, and you come back and look at the piece again, you have new ideas or intention of how to recreate something, you know, and it comes out more refined or more like translating that vision you had back then with better skills, you know. Right.
So how was life during that point when you were assistant working, and is this at the same time you were setting up a studio in the garage?
Yeah. So when I was working at Production Pottery and through the artists, I was living with my parents still, so I just drive to the city and come back and make art afterwards or work on my own practice.
Yeah. And so with your own practice, what was in your headspace at the time? Like, what was the purpose? What were you reaching for a goal at that point personally, or?
You know, I think it was a little bit of, I didn't know where to go.
And what were you making?
I was making more sculptural, and then I bought a pottery wheel, and then I was trying to go like making sculptures off the pottery wheel. And
how do you, so you're doing sculptures without the wheel? Oh, because the wheel is mainly for these.
Yep. Okay. For functional wear. And, and a lot of people make, you know, you can make vessels out of the wheel, like big, and then you can alter the vessels to make it more sculptural. And but I was still like floating around. Like I was very experimental when I was in the garage because I didn't have as much equipment.
Did you have a homemade kiln? Like, is that a thing?
So basically, my Xavier and Patricia, who were one of my professors, two of my professors when I was in school, they noticed that the school was having like what is called a fire sale, and they're just trying to get rid of equipment and just get it out and sell it for really cheap. Oh. And so I bought a very nice medium-sized kiln for like $100.
Oh, yeah. What does it usually go for?
Oh, probably like $2,500 or $3,000. Yeah, and it was like I had to buy maybe like $300 worth of parts to like get it up and running again, and then like another couple hundred for the electricity, and then and so I was back on, like I could start making and fire pieces, you know, in the garage.
So as you started accumulating sculptures and other ceramic pieces, like what was going in your headspace to try going to these fairs? What led you to the fairs? The
fairs, basically, you know, it's like I just had so much stuff, and you know, the hardest part was like doing the first fair. It's like getting that confidence to, you know, like, oh man, like I made these these pieces, and it's like school is a very safe place, and then after school, it's like when you have to like actually sell your piece to figure out how to sell. That's probably the hardest thing, you know, like. And the first fair was pretty hard, you know, like, oh man, I'm so nervous, and you just go out and you don't know how to unload a truck or move your pots, so you spend like a whole day packing your pots, which it should only take like not that, you know, it's just like overthinking a lot of things. And eventually I did the fair, and it was good.
What fair was it?
It was in I think it's Randolph Street Market in
Fulton Market.
Yeah. Oh. And it was like in the Plumbers Hall. But it was a long time ago.
Right off, is that Ogden?
Yeah, Ada Street. It was in like I think the building is called Plumbers Hall. But
cool.
I started doing that fair quite often, and it was a very small fair.
Were there other ceramic makers?
It was mostly like I think like a thrifting and antique fair, and then maybe there's. I don't think there was other ceramic artists, and so I was like the only. I was very out of place.
Yeah, well,
sorry.
not out of place, but like, what if there were other ceramic makers?
Oh, that'd be cool because then you could talk
Okay,
about.
so you would
like,
feel welcome then.
Yeah,
You wouldn't.
I'd be-
Okay.
Yeah, I could be like, hey, so how's the? I need some tips on how to do fairs, and But yeah, it was interesting because there's a lot of people that sold like found objects, like they find it, refurbish it, and
Sure.
it was like, and then there's like I think what's it called? Like thrift store.
Yeah. Vintage, like vintage.
Yeah, vintage. Yeah, that's the word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Vintage and.
So what? And so throughout the day, like, what did you learn? Like, did you get positive feedback from your work?
Yeah,
right?
it was good, like, and positive feedback, and people are very nice, so it's
especially in that community. I mean,
yeah.
just the secondhand community or the vintage thrifters, like
Mhm.
most of those people have, if not all, have an eye for art.
yeah, and that's what started the fairs,
So then, did that lead you down to making more of a certain type of ceramic?
Yep, more functional focus, and
And when we say functional, things that you can eat out of or drink out of?
yep,
Okay.
something that can be
Okay.
used, like vases, teapots,
Yeah.
bowls, cups.
And so, what's your mindset as far as like function and form?
I think it's always a push and pull or tug, right? Like there's sacrifice form for the function, or function try to go push a little bit more of the form, sacrifice the function, and
Or maybe it depends on what that piece is for specifically.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And it's fun to play around with because then you can make more unique wares,
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't know. I don't really like with restaurants. It doesn't really. With restaurants, they will get the bare minimum amount of function, so it functions for the purpose, and then you can really go crazy on the form,
Okay.
So
okay.
like if it's a bowl, like it has to be can be a bowl, and then you.
There's so much to your work, but it's also like there's so much depth to your work as far as colors and textures.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still so simple. It's like elegantly simple.
That's that's what I love about this style of making is I try to make it quick. Like you see like sushi chef or like when they're making the nigiri, they go really very quick, and each movement is like it's calculated, and it's they got the rice, they push the rice this way, that way, put the fish on and put the glaze on it. And I try to make the pottery in that way, and it's very quick and not overthinking it, and then like these lines in here are my finger marks, and I try to use I do a lot of glaze experimentation, so like I try to choose glaze that can enhance these qualities, or like.
And can you speak on different types of glazes?
Yeah, so there's like for me, I like to stick on the satin matte realm of glazes, and that's the way the light reflects off the surface.
Okay.
And so glossy glazes are glossy because there's a lot.
Is that glass?
Yeah, everything is glass.
Oh, everything's glass.
Yeah. So glaze is basically melted glass on the ceramic form or on the clay.
Okay.
And like glossy glazes, they reflect a lot of light, so that's why it's so shiny. And then this is more of a sand matte, so it's like less.
So you're always experimenting with ratios?
Yep, and it's the way you cool the kiln that can get the matte or the satin matte.
Ooh, so wait, that's a process of
Yeah.
cooling the kiln?
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's not on and off. You just like you have
No,
to cool the
yeah.
kiln. Wait, can you elaborate on that? Like, what do you
Yes.
mean?
Okay, so like a lot of for my matte and sand matte, when you cool the kiln slowly,
Okay.
basically crystals form on the glass surface. That's what makes it not reflect light as much and give it that satin matte
Okay.
look. And you can adjust that. Like there's a program called Glazy on the amazing people that made this program where you take a glaze recipe, you plug it in, and it gives you like the chemical analysis of it. And then you can like,
Is this free?
yeah, it's free.
What's
I mean, I do the Patreon because I love them.
Oh,
so
sure,
I
sure,
just
sure.
try to like keep it going. And then
How do you spell that? Glazies.
glazy.org.
Cool. Thank you.
And then
That's
you can just plug in any glaze, and it plots it on a map, and then that map it'll tell you like how the glaze will perform in the kiln,
Okay.
like roughly. But you still have to test because your clays are different.
But then you still have to test the timing of the cooling.
Yeah, that's all programmable in the kiln. So you can change the rate at which the kiln heats up, and then the rate at which it slows down, and then the cooling. You just experiment with that. Like okay.
Have you gone to the slowest?
At a certain point, like if it gets too crystally, it becomes like super unfunctional. Like you'll like, because it's really matte and there's crystal, so you try to get a knife on it, it'll just make that horrible scraping. It's just like, I mean, you can do it if you don't mind it, but I did do a lot of experiments with that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Damn. Okay, so then talk about some other you went to more fairs then after that,
more
right?
fairs.
More functional wear, more fairs. Like, well, you started gaining confidence. Like, speak on those experiences.
I guess it's just the fairs became more like just a way to bring out more, just push out work, and share my work.
And what year was this?
I want to say like 2015.
So like social media was still new.
Yeah, I was very not good at it, but it was also very interesting to like be able to find potters all around the world and see what they're doing, and because that was like when I was in school, like 3 years before that, like that didn't even
register.
I didn't even know that existed,
Yeah.
Or it wasn't a thing for potters, but like right now, Instagram is like one of the biggest things that potters use and find other potters.
Okay.
It's amazing.
You've spoken before on the cultural significance of Korean ceramics, and have you made the one video I watched? They were showing Celadon pottery, Celadon pots, like with like it's like not holes, but like they poke out like they make sculptures in the pot, and I'm like, what? and thinking back, like I've seen these pots, but like to see a maker carve things out and then remove each little spot.
Yeah.
I'll try to make a video with it. Have you experimented with any of these, or how much of that inspires you to put into your own work?
I like the Celadon is very Korean and Chinese. And, what's really Korean is called puncheong.
Puncheong. Okay.
Yeah, and that's basically kind of similar to this one.
Okay.
But it's basically you have a dark clay body underneath, or like you start with the dark clay body, which has a lot of iron and impurities in it.
Okay.
And then you put a very white clay over it, which is like a kaolin clay or a porcelain clay.
Okay.
And it's very pure, and so iron has a lot of impurities if it's in the clay, and it creates these brown spots. It changes the color of things.
Sure.
So you put that white clay over it, and it creates this like very deep, beautiful pot.
Well, it's a nice contrast because on the inside it's still dark.
Yeah, and then like you can do it as a brush or like dip it, and then what the origin of it was, what I loved was basically like porcelain is that really white, refined, pure clay, and that was safe for like government officials, kings, or people like with power, and so the peasants would make, the lower class people would make more. I guess they wanted to emulate that, and they're making like thousands of pots, And
it's cheaper to do it this way.
I guess it's more like, we want to make these pots that emulate this, but like we want to use it for us. And basically, you get these. They're making thousands. They're just throwing white kaolin clay or slip over it, and you just get these very, very abstract but like modern looking pots, and they didn't. I don't think at the time they knew what they were doing or what they were making, but it was like I guess they didn't know that what they were doing was a very modern technique of art making, and I guess a lot of Japanese pottery Japanese potters thought this was beautiful, and it was like it was like the basis of all their modern pottery in certain regions in Japan.
Wow. So how much of that still inspires you today?
I guess the making style of that, like trying to make quick, don't overthink things,
Okay.
really is how I like to make my pottery.
Are the materials expensive? Like, is it costly to like start over, or like just because after it's fired it's done? But like, is it costly to do that?
As long as it's not fired, you can recycle the clay
Okay.
and reuse it.
Right.
And then, but clay is, it's mud, it's dirt, it comes from the earth, so I mean, yeah, it's gotten expensive, but like kaolin and like porcelain it's still pricey, and
Okay.
and it requires a lot of babying the material, like, because it's very pure. It doesn't have a lot
Like
of
before you fire it.
yeah.
Okay.
You gotta dry it slow, and it's just, and it's, like, I like to work with dark clay, so it's very hard to clean the studio, and there's all these dust, and you make a piece, and there's like a speck of impurity in there.
Yeah.
You get burned. It's like a headache.
So, share the moment. I don't know his name. I haven't been to Schwa, but where the chef from Schwa came and,
Oh, yeah.
and loved your work and asked if you had like 25 ready, and you're like, no, but I can.
Yeah.
Can you share that experience?
Yeah. So the chef that found me at the fair was Michael Carlson.
Okay.
And, it's basically what happened was it was like a rainy day, very slow day
Okay.
for the fair. And, I think it always ends at 6 on Sunday. And then what happened was, like, it was like 10, 15 minutes before the closing and packing up, and there's like almost nobody at the market. And like, I was like, all right, I'll just wait a little bit, and then I see this guy like standing like 10 feet away from my booth, just
Like
looking.
looking?
Yeah,
Oh,
just like,
okay.
I had my setup, and he's just looking, and the table's like, it's only 6 feet long table. It's like one of those picnic table kind of things.
Yeah.
And then he's just standing looking. And I was like, all right, well, I'll just wait, like, to see what this guy does. And if he comes a little closer, I'll start talking to him. And he does come closer. And he's like, are these plates and stuff? And I was like, yeah, they're all handmade, dishwasher safe. And so, like, he's like, oh, cool. And how many you got on you? And he asked how many I had on me. And I was like, oh, I got like 5 here, maybe 5 or 6 at home or something. So like 10. And then he's like, well, how long will it take you to make 24, or 25 or some number? And then I was like, oh, I can make it like in a couple weeks, And he's like, all right, cool. And then he paid for it now, wrote down his restaurant, and I was like, oh, I'm David. And then I was like, are you a chef? And he was like, yeah, my name is Michael Carlson. I have a restaurant called Schwa and stuff. And then I was like, cool, nice, that's awesome, And then he paid, he left, and then he said, or before he left, he said, just give me a call, or come give me a call when you make it or you want to deliver. And if I'm not here, there's a guy named this Wilson that works there that you can deliver to as well. And so I was like, oh, cool. Okay, yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. And then after he left, the guy next to me was a restaurant person or worked in the industry. And I think he was with his girlfriend, and they were selling candles, and he was just like, hey, did you know who that was? That's a big sell you got there. I was like, yeah, I'm pretty excited. You know who that was? I was like, no, I don't know. Like, I've never. He's like, you don't know Schwa? And I was like, no, I don't know. And he's like, it's a really famous restaurant. And I was like, oh, cool. I looked it up and had like that $4 or $5 sign. I was like, whoa, nice. It's cool. And then I got really excited. And then I guess that's when I could see. And then I made that order, right? And then he probably ordered like 20. He ordered 25, but I probably made like way more because I was like overthinking it,
Sure.
So I made it like 2 weeks. I tried to make it as quick as possible, get that to him as quick as possible, and then I delivered it. When I went to go deliver it, he was really happy with the pieces, and then he was like, hey, so what are you doing tonight? And I was like, I don't know, I'll probably just go back work, and then he said to me, well, he said to his Wilson, he was like, hey, do we have any spots open for tonight? And then he was like, I was like, he said yes, and then he's like, you want to come down in here tonight? And then you and a friend, and just bring a friend, don't bring any, just bring you and a friend, that's it. And then I was like, whoa, okay. So I called one of my friends, or in my group chat, I was with my friends. I was like, hey, who wants to come to a restaurant with me? And then the first person that said me, and then I took my friend
Heck yeah.
to the restaurant that day, and it was like probably one of the greatest experiences into the Michelin level
Yeah.
restaurant dining, because it was like the moment, it's a really small restaurant, and the moment I entered, one of the chefs just like pulls out his hands like this and gives me a really big hug in front of everyone. I was like, wow, that's nice, you know, and then sit us down and starts feeding us drinks, and then it was just like very surreal experience, you know.
Was that your first sense of like community, maybe?
Community, and like, I guess like respecting the arts, I guess.
From another industry, right?
Yeah, and it was very heartwarming, because I'm like, man, I've been in my garage for like 4 years making stuff, and like this is like one of the best restaurants in the country that is like just treating me so nicely and stuff, and yeah, it was just amazing. And then they served my
and to share with a friend.
Yeah, exactly. And then all the drinks were on them, and they're like, if you lay any money on the table, we'll chase you out and you'll never be able to come. And I'm like, all right, you know, and then it was yeah, and then that was amazing. Yeah.
And was that your first experience with fine dining?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And it was amazing. So, and then I was thinking like, wow, that's like after first delivery,
gears were turning after this.
Yeah,
or?
they actually ordered more plates for me like 2 weeks later, to like more custom wares, you know.
Yeah.
So more like,
because I'm sure restaurants were ordering custom like handmade dinnerware, but how many are there in Chicago?
Yeah, it's not too many. I think so. With a lot of potter or artists, they're very specific in what they can make or what they want to make as well. And for me, it's like I worked in so many different fields, and like sculpturally, tile making, production, handmade pottery production, that I was able to take a little bits of the labor from different experiences and then figure out how to produce at a quick level for what they wanted.
But still be handmade.
Yep.
Yeah, enough attention with each piece. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep. And that was that's when it was like, all right, cool. Any job that custom piece people ordered, I would just do it, just for the ability to learn how to make the things to make the things, you know?
Yeah, it's a constant battle of like refinement. Right?
Yep.
And tweaking your process.
Yep. And and when restaurants order like the plates again, I write in my notebook, I have exactly what I wrote down when I made it.
Sure.
And to make it more better, you know, because I'll see pictures of it online of the place, and I'm like, oh, this rim ratio isn't what I want, and then I can make it more, you know, like presentable. And the plates at that level of restaurant, I guess, or like that level of restaurant and plating, it's like the plates are like art pieces as well.
Yeah.
Like they're like pedestals, but they're still art pieces to like, and I think that's what I'm really interested in when I'm making with restaurant wares.
So yeah, talk to me about some initial conversations you have when a chef approaches you, because although you've kind of carved out your own niche in the restaurant industry, every chef in themselves, they're their own artist.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a good level of variety for you. It doesn't get stale or stagnant. So tell us about some of the conversations you have with what they want to accomplish in dinnerware.
So it's a lot of it is, you know, like what's going in the plate or bowl.
Okay.
Plate or bowl. You know?
Okay.
And like size of plate and bowl, you know. And then color is huge. Like, do you want it to complement the dish, or you want to contrast it? And I guess it depends on the season or the chef, what kind of pieces they like. And then like texture, like glazes, you want shiny, matte, or like it's all different, you know. And the cool thing is, I guess, when I work with chefs, is it's like one artist, right? They have a mind, and then I have my mind of how to make stuff, and then we meet. Like, I'll make something, and then with the idea that they gave me, and I'll make a couple samples for them, and then they would change certain aspects or like add certain textures, like carve into the clay or make lines, and and then the piece eventually becomes like very unique to their restaurant style or personality and the dish itself. So.
And to this day, so I feel like is it like close to 30 restaurants that you've worked with?
Yeah,
around there.
Like 30 restaurants and like clients or like designers.
Are all the dinnerware unique to each other?
Sometimes there's like overlap, like there's like you can change up
or it's uniquely you.
Yeah.
Right? Like you like I think I read people can tell it's your work.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. And I'm always amazed by that too, as I'm like, wow, it's like it's a completely white clay, and then another restaurant I'll have like a clay or a piece that's like very textured and stuff, and they'll know that it's like mine, and I'm like, wow, I don't know, it's.
So I'm sure this is going to be hard, but like, how would you describe your style then?
My style.
What makes a DTK piece?
Yeah, I guess it's just I do like minimal pieces, but it's like refined but not refined. I don't know how to describe it. I'm still working on that, I guess, but handmade dishwashing microwaves.
I remember. So and then Jeannie from Kasama found you at a fair as well.
No, actually, what I did was so like after the schwa thing, I was trying to it's like art practice is like a roller coaster. You like or waves. Like orders come in and then it dies. Orders come in and then so basically what was going on was like I was sitting in my parents' garage doing fairs, and I was trying to figure out how to like sell to more restaurants.
You know what? Even before that, it's just like, how did you navigate what these things should cost?
Oh, I just based it off my fair prices, which that probably art pricing, wear pricing is, I think, the most hardest thing to do, and I guess I can produce, the way I produce my pieces is technically like handmade production, right?
Yeah.
And so I cut a lot of costs on, not like putting intricate details on the pieces and stuff, and mostly like I guess the style of making is what makes it pretty, I guess, or like gives it the identity, like so quick, and let the warp happen, like don't force things and let the kiln do the work. So a lot of the natural process of making is what adds the character to the pieces, I guess. So.
Right, but like how did you navigate? The price, do you want the people, like, do you envision the type of people that like want to use your stuff? I don't know who, like, I don't envision the people use it, but I guess I start off with a base price, like of where I sold materials and things like that,
and then I would double it, and then when I sold to restaurants, I would still keep that price because they were fairly very, very affordable back then, because I didn't really have that much rent.
Did chef be like, you should charge more for this?
I wish, but then I guess it's like I just started adding more throughout the years,
Well, because I'm sure there's a influx of other orders, and you're like, okay, I need to like charge more for these.
Yeah,
okay.
And then people would pay, and then it's like, okay. And then at fairs, I would sometimes when I would do more fairs, the entry costs would cost a lot more, and so I would I would raise it up a little bit, and then if they're buying the pieces there, it's like, why can't I still
do that in your own time?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so it just came naturally over like 6-7 years of making, So and I was definitely charging way too little.
We all do. Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, like I got $15 for this mug, or like, and then it's like, dang, like you double it, and then you're like,
well, at that time, I'm sure you're just happy that someone just bought your coffee mug, right? Mm-hmm. It's cool. It's cool that people use your stuff.
Yeah.
And like hold meaning into your like embed it, like someone who drinks coffee every day, like uses your vessel every day. Like that's amazing.
Yeah. I'm always like grateful for the people that support me. You know, it's like I don't have anything. I mean, it gets tiring, but I'm like, man, like I'm so lucky to do this. You know, I'm always like really happy about it and
So-
have the support.
Back to Jeannie.
Oh yeah, Jeannie and Tim. So it was like a slow period, like very slow, you know. But I'm still making. I never stopped making.
Okay.
Because I know like it makes me happy to make and pots, you know, or like sculptures. Like I always keep my mind busy. And eventually, I'm just I'm like trying to figure out how to do it. And I was like, my brother, and I basically went on like a Chicago tour of restaurants to stop by, or like galleries to stop to see if they want to buy pots.
Oh, cool.
And we had a lot of ones that were like, they weren't there, you know, like
chefs weren't there?
Yeah, I pack up all the pots in my car, and then we just like go knocking on restaurant door. And Tim and Jeannie, so we went to Oreo, Noah Sandoval's
Nice.
restaurant, and then we didn't. He wasn't there, but then Jeannie was there, and Tim, and then we basically laid out all the pots, and then they ordered from me, and basically I think they ordered like, they started small, like 25 of these small like rim plates,
Nice.
and I probably made 100 of them to make it like I was overthinking again, you know. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be really good, you know. And then I made stuff for them, and then eventually I think just word of mouth just, you know, like spread
Within the restaurant industry?
Yeah, and I guess what happened was the places I work for, like the production pottery, they worked in an industrial space, and an interior company in that space was looking for ceramic artists. But then my old bosses couldn't do what they were doing, and then so they contacted me to do that work. And a lot of I guess I got a good amount of business from just like word of mouth, I guess, from people I've had.
Don't need social media.
Yeah, and it was nice, you know, and everything was very controlled and paced with how I met people, and it's nice.
Yeah. What do you have any experiences where you felt? It might have been from Michael Carlson from Schwab, but like overwhelmed, like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready to produce what they're asking for. And you just keep it inside you, be like, I will, I just don't know how.
Yeah, exactly. The garage space, it was all shelvings, you know?
Yeah.
And like just, like it was crazy, like in small space with all those pots in there. And
So were you, was it like growing pains? Like it was time to expand and move?
Yeah, exactly. Because I was doing fairs, I was doing restaurants, and I was getting a lot more bigger orders for like hotel orders and stuff. So, but the hard part was finding a space, you know. And so, but I would never rush to anything, you know. I just take, you know, like it's hard now, but like if I find move all this equipment into a space that's like not good,
ideal,
then it's gonna be a nightmare because I'm not gonna be comfortable with it. And
so, what were some qualifications that you were looking for in a space?
Well, water.
Okay.
Because it's mostly just water and bigger than my current space, and not like.
So what do you mean
ridiculous.
like water? Like a water line inside the space?
Yeah, you need to work with clay or anything in ceramics. You need water. You know, like a water source. Like so, because when you make pots, you use water to like soften the clay to actually make your forms. Or when you're making glazes, you need water, or like mopping the dust, all the dust that happens. So definitely water. And you know, like I was working in a garage, so I needed some light, you know, some like natural light.
Damn, you just open the garage when you're working?
Yeah.
Does that have an effect on the clay?
It could affect. I mean, if it's humid out, it will affect, because humidity is water in the air, so things will dry slower. But if it's like drier heat, then it would dry more steadily and evenly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So then, what were some of the highlights of the space you landed in?
The space that I'm at right now it's in Austin area by Oak Park, but it's filled with artists, and I found that space by my old boss Deborah. She moved in there, and then she was like, "Oh, there's a couple of spaces open." She hit me up, and I go in there, and it's just like too good to be true space, because it's like when I moved in, they're still building out the building, and it's a very big industrial building, and
so like first tenant.
It was like
First second tenant.
and then like it's like the water line wasn't in the unit, but it's like, you know, like right outside. There's a communal slop sink that everyone can use, and it was like good enough, you know.
Okay.
And windows, and the downside was it's like, no, there's no downside. It's
So
free.
what sold it was like your mentor, or like one of your old old bosses? Okay.
Yeah, she referred me to this. They had the openings here, and then
Yeah, sometimes that makes or breaks a space too. It's just
Mhm.
like your neighbors. You know? Yeah. I mean, it's. I think that's just like school. It's invaluable to have good, like-minded people around you.
Mm-hmm.
And what's life been like now? Are you trying to create, or like go deeper in restaurant industry, or like what are you thinking right now?
Right now, I guess I really focused a lot on the production aspect of pottery and
How to make it more efficient?
more efficient. And you know, I used to not be into like, you know, like technology, like having the interest to like use computers or anything. But
Yeah.
now I'm more like, you know, like when I have an idea and it's like it cuts down on time to make certain things.
So you're making art boards on the computer?
Yeah, I'm trying to learn, you know.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I guess I want to. I'm just trying to figure out more ways to have like production line and also like a handmade line, more like, and be more experimental with the pots I make.
Yeah.
And or sculptures I make, and you know, like clay is it's crazy how versatile a material is and what you can do with it. That
Yeah.
I just want to experiment and make more sculptural forms or artwork, and but still make pottery.
So
you know,
yeah.
I love
In
pottery.
addition of like functional wear, is there a part of you that wants to host a gallery one day?
Probably I would try to apply to art fairs or
And through this, like, would there be a common thread or a theme behind the work that you want to put in the gallery?
that, you know, I think that will come after I make it, you know.
Oh.
Because, you know, like, you make like, I have the idea in my head, but, you know, like, the feelings of making, when you're actually making, like, that's when you can actually put your artist mind into it, you know.
Yeah. That's so cool. It's like you're yourself a pot. Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
yourself are clay, right? And you don't know what you're going to be until you actually do it.
Yep.
And so can you speak on what puts you in the zone? Because are there moments where you don't feel like hitting the wheel, or?
Yeah, I try to make stuff at a certain time of day,
Okay.
or time my week in a way where I can have this time to just make pots, you know.
Okay.
And because with pottery or ceramics, like, there's a lot of prep work, and then there's a lot of glaze mixing, chemistry, and testing. Testing is probably the biggest piece.
But does that go all the way to firing?
Testing?
Yeah. Like,
Well, I'll make a piece or like a glaze test, and then, you know, I'll run it through a couple firings and different types of clays, and
so
then
it
you'll
doesn't
make
have to be the entire thing. You
No,
can just
yeah.
test the glaze.
yeah, like a tile and stuff. But
Interesting.
it always comes out differently, you know, like just a little differently.
Okay.
And so, but you know, right now I'm just doing a lot of experimenting with like different types of clays and glazes. Clays mostly like flamework clays that can like just go on the open flame. You know what donabes are? They're basically clay pots that go on top of the stove, and you can cook like stews and cook rice in it.
Oh, in like Korean culture? In like Korean cuisine?
Korean, Japanese.
Oh,
yeah,
heck
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So, and then I guess it's just like trying to figure out the right clay body or mixture of materials to withstand that heat.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even to make something dishwasher safe, what does it got to be?
It's really like with the glaze, and the clay has to fit properly, and also don't make it too thin. You know, like when you get pieces that are like this thin, you know, and it's gonna crack because it's gonna absorb the water.
So, but how do you test for that?
Basically, you know that program I talked to you about, Glazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it gives you the chemical analysis, and basically, like 100 years ago, this scientist, I think his name was Stoll, but he figured out the ratio of all the like a plus or minus ratio of the materials in the glaze
Yeah.
and the clay that can create a very good durability.
Okay. Oh, very cool. Very cool. Dang. Is there anything that you wish your younger self knew?
A younger self, I think, just like body wise, just be careful. You know, it is very physical.
During the process of pottery? Like,
Yeah, pottery and it. You know, it's like
is it the bending over? Like, what do you mean?
bending. It's constant labor. So like the bags, you know, like materials weigh a couple, like 50-pound boxes or 100-pound glaze mixtures,
Wow.
and it's. And like the molds, they can get really taxing on like your fingers and your wrists, like lifting, moving.
Okay.
It's like awkward moving, you know. And so I just started doing yoga, and it helps your back, and so it's
Yeah,
cool.
no, the few
slouching right
videos
now,
I've
too.
seen, they're like they're rounded over.
Yeah.
The wheel. How long would a session usually last?
Oh yeah. I mean, I try to do like 6 hours.
6 hours.
Yeah, but like I'll sit up, stretch, and then
Okay, so like
Yeah.
6 hour sessions in a studio, and then you just like leave.
like making maximum, I'll do 6. Like I'll usually work a lot a day, like 10 hours.
Have you heard of like the 4 hour work week?
No.
Not 4 hour work week, but like 4 hour work days in the sense. The 4 hour work week is a Tim Ferriss book, but like 4 hour day. I don't know if that's what people meant, but like instead of like a traditional 8 hour day, people like you lose your attention span after a certain amount of time. But maybe when you're so in the process, you get lost.
Yeah,
you're so in it, right?
When I go to the studio, I walk in. Most of the time, it's like, wow, it's already time to go, because I have so much fun, It's like,
It's cool to hear that this far into it, you're still having fun with it.
oh yeah, because I guess there's so much stuff I want to make, and then so much experimenting that I want to do that when you actually do it, everything just it takes time.
Yeah.
So, but I'm always very excited to be there. It's like my mind is my space. And I created that area, and I'm very happy about what I've built in there.
Yeah.
And it's prideful and.
Yeah, with going along the lines of pride, like, do you think about the legacy you're going to leave behind when you're no longer here?
No.
You don't think about that?
Oh, I do think like, wow, I made a lot of pots, but I don't think about, like I'm.
And you don't really care too much about it, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I know that the pots are going to be here longer than any of us will, but that never. I don't think that influenced the way I make things or how I make things, and
It doesn't create a sense of urgency to continue to make things.
yeah, no.
Wow. And you're a rare breed, David. As far as having lucky parents, or as far as like truly loving the process.
Mhm.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Do you know anyone that hosts introductory classes? If someone in Chicago wanted to learn how to, or is that something you're interested, or you might not even have the bandwidth to do it, but like, where does someone take an intro class? Like, do you recommend any?
Yeah, there's one in Logan Square and one in Pilsen.
Oh, cool.
Pilsen is called Narware
Okay.
Workshop. They're on 18th Street, I think, and then Logan Square is Penguin Foot Pottery.
Okay.
And then there's one in Ravenswood, Lil Street, and then Bridgeport Arts Center too.
Oh,
And-
that's where we're getting married.
Oh yeah! Oh,
Yeah.
congratulations!
Hell yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, the instructor, like the Pottery World is very small,
Yeah.
or in Chicago, so like they're all fantastic places, So
That's cool. Any advice for, especially someone taking an intro course for fun, like a hobbyist? It can be frustrating when you're building something up and it kind of just melts apart and you have to start over.
Yeah.
Any advice for them?
practice patience and pain.
What's the third one?
Pain.
Pain.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, pain. I'm just joking, but it's just like pottery is the art of failure, and you don't really want to get attached to the pieces you make in the beginning, even though you do, but you don't. Like
That's a very
the ones that survive.
Zen mindset.
The ones that you make are not probably going to be the ones you end up firing and getting, you know. So there will be in the making process, there'll probably be some that a lot that don't turn out.
In the beginning, how many iterations did you do before you felt ready it could be fired?
Well, I'll make it and fire everything. And I'll look at the piece before it's fired. If there's any cracks or like if it's a little too thin, then I'll recycle it, and then and then you fire it. And yeah, I'd say like when I make a batch, there's probably like 1 or like 3% loss rate. Because it's clay. It's
when you say loss rate, like is that shrinkage or what do you mean?
Just like like when the clay shrinks, it doesn't shrink properly, and you'll get cracks and or like you can like it can like hit the pot just like that before it's fired, and then you'll notice like a little hairline crack. You could, it's just like human error has like it's not perfect because it's not machine made, so there is like a loss rate.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Have you experienced anything like that when like especially when like trying to deliver for a bigger client or something like that?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, and like one time I'll mix up a glaze wrong. It's like when it's for clients, I'm very, very, very cautious. Careful, and I make sure whatever I'm making for them is like I've tested it and go over the firing schedule a couple of times. But like when I'm making my own stuff, I'm free,
You're a little bit more experimental.
Yeah, and then,
so you still have a good balance.
Yeah.
For like things that you do for other people and things that you do for yourself.
Yep.
Okay.
And then it just keeps my mind going, and I'll have more ideas of what to make, or like restaurant or client wear and then personal wear. They have a conversation like, oh, okay, for this one they did it like this, but maybe when I make my own stuff, I can do it like this with this different glaze, and then I'll have a few left over, and then a client will see that and they'll like it, another client, and it's everything like bounces off each other.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you ever see a previous work at a restaurant and be like, now knowing what you know, like I could have done that better?
Oh yeah. Of course.
What a cool feeling.
Everything is like, it's as time and skill they grow. Hopefully,
Right?
So, and I always try to look for like, slight improvements or change the way I see pieces in a way to, like help the piece grow or my mind grow or my eyes change over looking at things,
For sure.
And that's, it's fun.
What are you excited about for 2023?
I guess right now I have a sense of a good balance actually of when I can make things and when I can sell things, and I got better at working websites, so I should have my online shop finally working, and like.
So you'll start selling online?
Yep.
Oh, cool.
I'll do online sales frequently, or I'll have online sales throughout the year, but then most of it was through commissions, but now I can like I know how to like balance my making more. I don't like to overwhelm myself with one project. Like I can really put my finger like like dance on different areas of making. Yeah. And then it's Is
there, if you want to put these vibes into the world, who would you ideally like to collab with in 2023?
Collab?
Doesn't have to be a restaurant industry person.
I guess more. I think artist collabs would be fun.
Other like within ceramics or outside of ceramics.
Yeah, anything. And I always enjoy collabing. Like it's like with chefs I've been doing it for so long. And it's like it's just nice. It would be cool to collab with other artists.
What kind of artists? Like a painter?
Painters or...
So if we were to collab with a painter, what would that look like? Like they like you make it and then they could paint on top of it, or like...
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be functional. Like I can make the sculpture part and they do the painting part, or like, it could be as abstract as, like one could do it, And I remember I made some plates for a tattoo artist, and then I told him which paints to buy, and I made the plate, and he made these really sick like dragon and tiger motif plates.
Is there any part of you that wants to give back, like be philanthropic?
When whenever people like ask me to come to the studio or like I'll do workshops and like I try to like bring them over to the studio for like a tour and tell them like which, you know, it's like every artist path is different, you know, and I try to tell them like which way I went or how I did things. And then, yeah.
But like, what about like creating a class for maybe like underserved youth? I'm sure like some high schools don't have the opportunity to, you know, throw clay and things like that. And like anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I can go there, that'd be good. Because, you know, my space is for production and I have to move like...
It's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's like I can't move like... It's like I got 1,000-pound equipment.
Yeah.
So
maybe
like,
if there's another studio.
Yeah,
But if they had a studio, they probably have their own, you know, teacher. Yeah, it's interesting. So like where are you drawing your sense of fulfillment from right now?
I guess just... making
yeah because you have this community around you. I think you're appropriately compensated, right? So you got money, you got community, you enjoy what you do, and then it's usually like, is there a sense of giving back?
Yeah, I mean, like bringing people over and then
just whether it's like giving away knowledge, creating a course, and it doesn't have to be a course that you're there in person, whether it's like you start a blog on your website in addition to a shop, anything. And I'm sure that just even fuels your fulfillment, sense of fulfillment even more.
Of course, yeah.
Than how you already, because you're glowing, right? You're super elated with how you're doing right now, but there's no ceiling to that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, blog and
YouTube. You could start a YouTube channel.
I mean, if I have, I gotta.
I guess for now, I know it's overwhelming. It's like, keep doing the BTS. We all love to see it.
Yeah.
Keep doing the BTS. It's as easy as using your phone. And if you wanted to add an extra layer of complexity to it, is like, add captions to maybe what your thought processes are during whatever you're showing. I think people really appreciate that. And everyone has access to social media, so that's definitely one way of giving back. Anything else you want to share? Share on the pod, David.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. David, you're a simple man. You love what you do. I appreciate you coming on. You're doing great things, especially in the hospitality industry, and I appreciate you sharing, because an artist's journey is so unique. But that being said, I think up-and-coming artists appreciate hearing how other artists have made it. So thank you for coming on, and we look forward to what's in store for the rest of your 2023.
Thank you.
All right.